We got Terraform Meta arguments part 2 today. Let's go ahead and get screen sharing. Get started. Alrighty. So meta arguments in Terraform are special arguments used within resource blocks to control the behavior and life cycle of resources. They allow for more granular control over aspects like dependencies, creations, destruction of resources, etc. Today we're going over provisioners, connections, and outputs. These meta arguments are crucial for resource initiation, instantiation. Yeah, there you go. I've never seen that word before. Dependencies, configuration, and life cycle management. So we have dependencies and provider management. We already went over variables and locals, I think, last week. So those would be in here, but since we already covered those, I think you guys are pretty set on those. Provisioners in Terraform allow you to execute scripts or commands on a resource after it has been created. They're useful for tasks such as installing software, updating settings, or configuring services on resources. So say we are creating an instance, right? And then we can go ahead and use a provisioner and then use, say, echo hello world. So as soon as you log in to that instance or SSH, it will say hello world in the terminal. This is good for, say, need to install some dependencies on whatever application you're trying to do. You can essentially build out that application. You put a whole bash script in there. Build out the application just automatically that way too. This example demonstrates how a remote exec provisioner is used to run the commands on EC2 instance after it's created. In this case, it outputs hello world to the console. Connection. The connection meta argument is used with provisioners to specify how Terraform will connect to a remote machine, such as via SSH or WinRM. This is necessary for executing remote scripts or commands using provisioners like remote exec or file. So in this case, so we're creating the instance, right? It's named example. We're giving it that. Here's our AMI, our instance type, and then this connection meta argument. And the type is SSH. The user is EC2 user. You're passing in your RSA token, and then that's pretty much about it. And then in this case, the provisioner, we are installing HTTPD. So in this instance, we would have HTTPD already installed once we SSH into there, or Apache. And then the output block in Terraform. It's used to display values from your infrastructure after provisioning resources. This is helpful for getting important details like IP addresses, IDs, and other relevant information, especially when you need them for further operations or configurations. An example is like getting the instance ID in like your Terraform plan, or once you do apply, it will put it right there in your console or in your terminal window, whatever that instance ID would be. These remaining meta arguments are essential for managing dependencies, configuring providers, handling remote resource interactions, and fine-tuning the life cycle of your resources, enhancing your Terraform configurations. Let me go ahead and share this other screen over here. So in this case, it's me going over a little bit of all of them. So we're creating our resource, right? We're creating an AWS instance or an EC2 instance, right? We're giving it the name example for this internal naming thing that we can refer back to it when we're creating more resources within our Terraform code. We have our AMI, our instance type, T2 micro, and then we have our connection meta argument. So in this case, we're using SSH. Our user will be EC2 user, and the private key, I just passed in my private key, right? See how this is tabbed over, right? So this is part of this instance. Same thing with this provisioner block. It's tabbed over all within this one resource block. So in the provisioner, doing remote exec, and then we are installing Apache or HTTPD, right? And then we're getting the instance ID from the output. So if we run a Terraform plan here, we'd see our output right here, which is our instance ID. We'll get that once we do an apply. And then we are creating just one to create essentially. One to add, 0 to destroy. But if we run an apply here, then we would get Apache installed on there, and then we can SSH into that instance with my PEM file for the RSA token. You guys have any questions on that? I'll go ahead and pause the recording then.